So first of all, I would like to go through the talk outline today. Um, First, we are going to do a small recap on what Ballerina Swan Lake is, and then I'm going to do some introduction about database integration and also some introduction about Ballerina Persist module. And then I'm going to do an introduction about GraphQL. And then we are going to talk about how to perform database operations in Ballerina, and then how to expose your database using a GraphQL API in Ballerina. So let's go directly into the subject. And if you have any questions, please do ask, and we'll have a separate time to answer the questions as well. So this is a quick recap. This actually is from previous sessions slide deck. So as shown in here, Ballerina is a data-oriented language where we have uh, integral support that built into the language, like JSON support, XML support, and tabular data types. And also Ballerina is capable of handling concurrency internally. So the developers do not have to worry about their applications being concurrent safe, or where they have to think about how to make their applications concurrent safe, because Ballerina runtime will handle that internally. So you only have to worry about your business logic. And then Ballerina is structurally typed. Ballerina have structured types where you can compare two types and say whether they are equal or not by just looking at the structure of that type. So likewise, Ballerina has some inbuilt features that are perfectly catered the integration landscape, and to help you with right elegant integrations in Ballerina. Um, Apart from these features, there are some additional features I need you to focus on Ballerina, like network abstractions. So as I said, Ballerina is designed and developed with the idea of being able to handle integrations elegantly. So to do this, Ballerina has some inbuilt network abstractions where you can just write code, and you don't have to worry about the underlying network applications, network calls, and everything. It will be handled internally from the Ballerina language itself. So Ballerina has the service and client model, where usually if you consider network request response scenario, you have a client and you have a service. Your client sends a request to the service, and then service will respond to the client. So in Ballerina, these service and clients are first-class citizens, which means you can write a service directly like this. In the right side of this slide, you can see you can how you can write a service in Ballerina easily. Similarly, you can write a Ballerina client like this, where you can write an HTTP client to connect with any server, and then just call any resource in the server like this, and retrieve your response. Likewise, Ballerina also has this concept called resource and remote methods, which are introduced to handle network calls. So we have services and clients to handle network requests, and to cater those requests specifically, we have resource functions and remote functions, where resource functions are similar to REST resources. Uh, you can call that resource function and retrieve the resource, or do something else with that resource. Or you have these remote functions in Ballerina, where we specifically mentioned that we are invoking this function remotely, which means you have functions which are running locally on your program, inside your program, and there are some remote functions where you call some remote endpoint and do something else. So in Ballerina, we have this remote function concept, where we are using this arrow notation to indicate that we are doing a remote function call. So likewise, there are some interesting network abstractions. So if you consider this, you don't have to worry about how this HTTP listener works underneath, or how this HTTP client connect with the server. You don't have to think about it. You just create a client and then you just work with it. So these are some interesting features in Ballerina where you can write elegant integrations. And now we can go into the next section about the database integration. Um, database Databases are an integral part of almost all the modern day applications. Like if you write any web application in these days, you have to have some kind of a database. Maybe it will be a relational database, or it might be NoSQL database. Anyways, you have to use some kind of a data store to store your data. And integrating a database to your application can be some hard thing sometimes, because most of the programming languages these days do not designed to handle these kind of scenarios. So there may be some additional libraries, third-party libraries you have to import, and then you have to configure these different libraries in different ways. So maybe there's some way to connect to a MySQL database, but when you connect to a MongoDB database, it's completely different. But in Ballerina, all these are uh, designed to work similarly, so you don't have to worry about the underlying implementations. So if you check the right side in this slide, you can see how you can connect to a MySQL database using Ballerina. You just have to import this Ballerina MySQL connector. These connectors are published by Ballerina team. So Ballerina has this set of connectors where you can use to connect almost everything you see in these days, like MySQL, MS SQL, MongoDB, Redis, or even Google Sheets, Gmail. There are many such clients where you can use these connectors to connect with those APIs and handle operations. So these connectors provide you an easy way to connect with the database like this. If you want to create a database client, you only have to pass your specific information about your database connection, like the host port, username, password, and maybe database. And once you pass this connectivity is created internally, and then you can just do a simple query like this, like in a single line. So likewise, Ballerina provides some interesting ways to handle these kind of integrations with databases. And additionally,
Guruge, I think we have a question. Prof, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question regarding the password.
Yes.
Thisaru, is there no way one can handle the password differently instead of just like adding
Sorry?
it to? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I didn't get clearly the
My question is regarding the password.
Yes.
Is there no way one can handle the password differently instead of just having it in clear?
No. You don't have to provide it this way. I'll show you in the live coding session how you can pass the passwords without directly typing it here. So
Okay.
Ballerina has a concept called configurable variables, where you can configure these variables within the environment.
Okay,
So
okay, I see.
when running the program, it will be taken out from the environment, so you don't have to commit this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So as I was saying, so now we have these connectors, and additionally, Ballerina also has this functionality called Ballerina Persist, where you don't have to even write these queries. From the language constructs, you can handle database operations, so you don't have to worry about the SQL language as well. I'll talk about Bal Persist a little bit more. Ballerina Persist is a set of tools defined in Ballerina, where you can handle database queries and database operations within Ballerina, and it will help you to generate a simple client to connect with database. It works quite differently than the previous client I showed you, but that client is the one underneath working for your Persist client to work. Let me show you a live example so we can dive into that subject. Going into terminal, and I'm going to create a new Ballerina project. I'm going to write a simple movie database for this example. So my Ballerina package name is movie database. When I execute that command, it will create a movie database Ballerina package here. So I am going to open that movie database using Visual Studio Code. So here's what Ballerina Bal new command generates for me. If you check this main.bal file, this is where our Ballerina code resides, and it will generate a simple hello world program here. Let me increase the font size. I guess you can see this code, right? So
Yes.
Thank you. We don't need this code, so I'm going to delete that. And to initialize the Ballerina Persist, what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute this command Bal Persist, and the command is init as mentioned in here. So Bal Persist init, and then additionally I can provide some additional information. This minus module is to mention whether we need a separate module to handle our database operations, so we can have it inside our main function as well. But for the sake of simplicity and modularity of my Ballerina project, I'm going to use a separate module. So I can say module data source here. So it will generate a new Ballerina module inside our project to generate this database operations. And then I can provide data store variable here. So data store can be any data store, but currently there are a limited number of data stores supported in Ballerina, including MySQL, Google Sheets, and in-memory databases as well. So for this example,
I think there's a question. I think there's a question. I think there's a question. There's a hand up.
Please go ahead. Yes, Kevin.
Sir, is it just me or it's muted from this side?
Sorry?
Can everybody hear or is it just me?
Yes, I can hear.
Kevin, are you not able to hear anything? Seems like he cannot hear. I'll write to him.
Is it from my side?
No, we can hear you clearly. It should be on his side.
Okay. Shall we wait or?
Just continue, please. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So as I was saying, Ballerina supports multiple data stores, and there are some more support coming in the future releases. But in this example, I'm going to use MySQL as my data source because it's one of the most widely used data stores nowadays. If you consider the relational databases, MySQL is one of the most popular ones. And I can execute this command now. If I execute it, it says now it is initialize the package for persistence. Now as the next steps, I have to define my data model in this persist/model.bal file and then run Bal Persist generate to generate the Persist client. So now, as it instructs, I'm going to define my data model here. So for my database, I am going to use two main entities. One is movie and the second one is directors. So each movie has a director and each director can have multiple movies. So to do this, I'm going to define ballerina types here, two ballerina types. First one is movie. It should be a record type, and I'm going to define it as a closed record. And each movie should have a title and also a year. So this is my movie main information about my movie, but it shows me an error because it says that movie entity must have at least one identity read-only field. This is because each entity should have a unique key to identify them. And in relational databases, we usually use IDs to identify these different entity values. So here I am going to add a string ID field. But in Ballerina, if you want to identify a particular field as a unique field, we have to define it as a read-only value. So if I define it as a read-only string ID, then this error will be disappeared. So likewise, I'm also going to define another type called director. It is also a record type in Ballerina, and my director will also have read-only string ID and string name. Then also int, I'm going to say birth year. So this is my basic data model, but still these two types don't have any relationship currently. But I want them to have a relationship because each movie should have a director and each director should have a set of movies. So I'm going to add that relation like this. Each movie should have a director. So now it gives me another error because the related entity director does not have the corresponding relation field. This is because if you have a relation from movie to director, there should be another relation to director to movie, because otherwise we cannot complete that relationship. So in here, I'm going to define another field called movies, which is an array of movies because a given director can have multiple movies. So this will be a movie array. And once I define that field, my previous error will be disappeared. So now this is my data model. It's a really simple data model, and now we can use this Bal Persist generate command to generate our persist model. If you hit enter, now it will create a separate directory called generated, and inside that we have a persist client.bal file, then persist config file, and persist type file. Additionally, it will create a SQL file as well, but we don't have to worry about the contents of these files because those are auto-generated files and those are for this persist client to handle our queries. We now can use that generated client to our database operations. So to do that, I have to import this data source module because we created it as a separate module here by providing -- module data source. So I'm going to import that. It will be movie database dot data source. Movie database is our package name, and data source is the module name. So once I import this module, I can create a new client called data source client. I'm going to say DB client, and it should be new. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a database client and I'm calling this new keyword. New means we are going to call the constructor of this client type. So when you create a client, there can be errors, because if you provide invalid configurations, then this can return an error. If it returns an error, from this check keyword, we tell the program to return that error and just exit. Otherwise, if it is not an error, then it will return a DB client object, and I'm telling it to assign that DB client instance to this DB client variable. Hope that that's clear. So now I'm going to write a function, main function. This can return an error or nil. In Ballerina terminology, we call this question mark as nil. So you can either return an error from this main function, or it can return nil or nothing. And now inside my function, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some values to insert into my database. First, let me show how to retrieve data from the database, and then we can insert something. So when to retrieve data, you can call this DB client and this arrow notation. If you remember, I mentioned earlier that if you are doing some remote function, remote operation, we are using this arrow expression to mention that this is a remote execution. So in the DB client, I'm going to if I type this arrow, it will suggest me the available operations in my database. If you see these suggestions, these are pretty much similar to how a REST API works. In REST APIs, you can say directors / post or get or delete. There are some operations where you can operate on the database. And here I'm going to use this /directors, where this will return all the directors in my database. This shows me an error because I did not assign any variable value to this return value. So I'm going to use this data source colon directors. It still gives me an error, because if when you request the all the directors from your database, it will return as a stream. This stream type is a special type in Ballerina, where it can return a stream of data. Like in this case, if you retrieve data from a database, it will return those data as a stream. So this stream can be the value of this stream can be this director type. This director type is auto generated from our data source, and it can be ended with an error or nil value. So if I type this, and then let's say I want to take this directors as an array, I can assign this as like this director array, and we can use the Ballerina's inbuilt query expressions to filter this stream and filter the stream and assign that to an array. Here I'm going to use check from data source. I'll explain this after I write this query. So what I'm saying here is get this directors stream, and in this director stream, for each director type, select that director P and assign push that into an array. So all the values are filtered, where each value of the stream is a director type, and then it will be assigned to this array. Then finally, I can use this Ballerina IO package and use println method to print the director array. So if I run this, will this work?
But first, you didn't check. First, you didn't check if DB clients returned an error or not at first.
Yes, this will be returning an error if we when creating the database connection. If it is an error, the program will be ended right here before entering the main function.
Okay.
So if we run this, that's a good question actually, because if we run this, it will give us an error because our configurations are not set. We didn't provide our configurations for our database, so it cannot access to the database, and it says that access is denied for this user. So how can we provide these configuration values? So if you check here, when you generate that Ballerina Persist client, it will also generate this config.toml file. This file have now inserted these fields where we have to fill to connect to our database. So basically, these are some default values. Host is localhost, port is 3306, and the username is root. But the password and database it doesn't know, so it kept it as empty strings. So I have a MySQL database running locally. So for connect the database, I'm going to provide the password. Password should be root, and database should be movies. So this is a running database instance. So as you asked previously, this is how we can provide configurations separately without type them inside our code. So code and the configurations are separated out. So you can handle these in the environment itself. You can also read them from environmental variables as well, but I'm not going to show that. But it's really easy, just a single line. So now I have provided these parameters, and I'm going to run this again. Ballerina bell run. Now it's running, and it prints an empty array here because we don't have any information just yet. So it will return an empty array. So now I'm going to create some data to add to our database. So I'm going to say director 1, and it should be a record type. Each director should have an ID. Let's say ID is just 1. Name is James Cameron. These values are suggested from the Copilot. And birth year, I don't know. Okay, it says he's born on 1954. Let's add another director, Christopher Nolan. Okay, now we have 2 directors here, and I also want to create some movies to add with these directors. Movie 1, okay. It'll so here now I want to show you something more. So now we have this director type, and each director have ID, name, and birth year. This is somewhat similar to what we defined in our data model without this movie array, right? And similarly, when I go into define this movie value, it has ID, name, and year, but as per our data model, it should be a director type. But if you are going to do that in code, you cannot do this, right? Because each director has an array of movies, and each movie has a director. So this is an infinite relationship. But when you generate this persist model, we can go into this persist model and check. When you generate this, sorry, the movie type. When you generate this, you can see that this is derived as a string director ID, because from our data model, Bal Persist tool knows that we have a relationship from movie to director, and director is identified by director's ID. So it will add the separate field here called director ID, and that director ID is like a foreign key in your database. So likewise, in our data model, now we can add director's ID here and just complete it. Let's say this should be title. Okay, now I have a movie. Let's define a couple of more movies here. Movie 3. These are just values generated from GitHub Copilot. Don't think much about those things because those are just dummy values. Okay, now we have 4 movies and 2 directors here, and I'm going to insert them. So basically, as I said, this generated client from the Bal Persist tool is similar to a REST client, RESTful service client. So what I can do is DB client and a remote call, and I can use this post method, directors.post, because usually in REST APIs we do this post requests to add data, and to post
excuse
this.
me, Thisaru, I didn't quite get the explanation you gave regarding the directors, because in your record, it's a closed record, and the directors are
Yes.
supposed to have an array of movies.
Yes. So this is how relational databases works, right? So in this relationship, we have 1 to n relationship, right? So each movie has one director, and director has multiple movies. So when you map this to a relational database, it will be mapped as mapped using a single foreign key constraint. So we have this director type, and then we have movie table. Think about a table in the MySQL database. We have a movie table, and then we have a director table. Then from the director table, we have this ID field, and in the movie table, we have movie ID and also foreign key to define the relationship between each director and the movie. So each movie has directors. So if you check in this data model, we have this movie array, but we cannot have each movie ID inside an array because that's redundant, right? We can connect the dots from that foreign key constraint in the movie record, so we can know in each movie, if we check the director ID, we know that this movie is from that particular director. You don't have to specify movie IDs here because that's redundant. We have to add multiple movie IDs here in this table.
Okay, but what puzzles me is actually the fact that still with a closed record, because with a closed record, I was expecting it to strictly follow the spec of the spec of the record before accepting the object. It seems like it's doing it internally for the user.
I still didn't quite get your question. You mean these are closed records, right?
If it was an open record, then it means that you don't have to provide, my understanding of it is that you don't have to provide all the fields. But if it's a closed record, you have to provide all the fields for the object to be created. So under director, even though there's a magic in persist to make sure that the foreign key takes care of the movie arrays, the fact that it accepts it is what was puzzling.
That's because this. So this is just for defining our data model. But when you define your data model and execute that Bal Persist generate, it will generate these types separately inside the generated types. So these types don't have that array here. That's why you don't have to provide those values.
Okay.
Did you understand?
Okay, actually, the persist is actually regenerating those objects.
Yeah,
okay.
They generate separate types here. Apart from those are not similar to this data model types we defined. It uses separate set of types derived from the data model.
Actually, it's multiple objects that are created to fulfill the foreign relation. Okay.
Yes. Yes. So these, to handle those relations, it will generate a set of types like this movie type, and we have this movie optionalized type, movie with relations type. There are multiple types generated here to handle database operations. Those types are derived from this basic data model, but those are somewhat different from the actual types we defined here.
Okay, it's clear now.
Okay, so okay, now we are going to add these directors into our database, and I'm going to say director 1 and director 2 here. So it still shows me an error because this will return a value, and in Ballerina you cannot just ignore a value, because if this returns an error, then that error should be handled explicitly. You cannot just ignore errors in Ballerina. So I can use the same check expression here and say that if you encounter an error here, just return it from here. And after that, I still get an error because the variable assignment should be there, because this will return the inserted IDs as an array. But I don't need those values now, so I can just ignore those values. Just keep in mind that you cannot do this without this check expression, because if I remove that, it will give you an error because you have to handle that error explicitly. Likewise, I'm also going to insert movies as well. So this is my database now, and I'm also going to now print the movies as well. This is pretty much similar to how we printed directors. So if I run this now, you can see that now I have a set of directors here, and I also have a set of movies here as well. To print this, okay, let's see that later. So now we have our database client, and we saw that how we can access to that database, insert values or read values from database. So in any of these lines, we didn't write even a single character of a SQL query. You don't have to worry about those queries. You only have to worry about these types here. So now in this case, let's see whether now this will return all the informations about the director, right? But what if we only need that director's name? How can we do that? So usually if you write this in MySQL, you have to write another query to this, handle this. But in here we can do something like this. So I am saying that now I am expecting a record type here, and it's a closed record. And in this closed record, I need only the name of this director. So I'm expecting a record with only the name field here. And if I do this, the Bal Persist will be generate the query internally and only retrieve those values. So if when I change this, it will give an error here because this type is not matching with that stream we return. So I'm going to change this as well. And this should be also a record with name. So I'm going to remove this for now. Now, if we run this, let me quickly import this Prettify package as package, because it will be printing the JSON values or record values pretty. Otherwise, it will be some just cluttered all around. So now if I run the bell run command, oh, sorry, we don't have to insert this value now. So I'm going to remove those inserting commands. Okay, let's run it again. Now, if I execute that, then I get the only the names of these directors. And let's say now I want my movie records as well for each director. To get that, I can add another field here. It should be a record where I have string title, because I only need the title of the movie, and it should be a record, and the field name is movies. So what I'm saying here is I need a record from here, from my director's path, and that director, the expected fields from this query should be string name and an array of movies, and each movie should be a record that consists only the title field of the movie. So I have to use the same type here as well. Okay, so I think you get the point. We are just taking the movie director and the movies of each director from an array. So if I run this again, now I get this response. The name is James Cameron, and he has single movie Avatar, and Christopher Nolan, and we get the titles of each of his movies here. So likewise, you don't have to write this. So if you think about MySQL terms, to get this, you have to write a join query, like joining the movies table and directors table, and use the foreign key constraints to join them, and then query the fields. But in this Ballerina Persist mode client, you don't have to do anything. You only have to state the expected type, and it will generate the query for you. So it's really easy to handle these kind of queries in Ballerina Persist client. I hope that's clear. So that's about Ballerina Persist. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about GraphQL. So GraphQL is a new protocol. We call it a query language for APIs. This is developed by Facebook back in around 2012, and they have open sourced it since 2015. Since they have open sourced it, many of the major companies have adopted GraphQL as their API protocol, such as GitHub, Netflix, and Shopify. Likewise, there are many major companies who adopted GraphQL because GraphQL solves an inherent problem within REST APIs. REST is the go-to standard in API arena these days, but GraphQL solves two main problems in REST APIs. Those are overfetching and underfetching. If you consider our same example, in a REST API, if you want to fetch movies of a particular director, you first have to call one endpoint and get the director's ID, and then after that, you have to call another REST endpoint to retrieve the movies of that particular director, right? So there will be two network calls to retrieve movies of a given director. This is called underfetching because from a single request you cannot fetch all the data you need. You have to send multiple requests. And also there's this problem called overfetching, where let's say you only need the movie title in your response, but in REST APIs it doesn't work that way. REST APIs have a set of predefined structure to a response, and that will be your response no matter what you need. So there will be some additional fields where you don't need the year of the movie, but you will anyway get that. This is called overfetching. So to solve these issues, Facebook introduced GraphQL because they wanted to optimize their mobile application where they don't need, they wanted to reduce the network calls, and also they wanted to reduce the network load. So to do this, they introduced GraphQL, and in GraphQL, they are defining the data, the API using a GraphQL schema. In this schema, you have types, and each type will have internal fields, and likewise there is a hierarchical manner of defining types in a GraphQL scheme. And this query type is a special type where that's the main entry point of a GraphQL service. And in this entry point, you can just have as many fields as you want, and each of these fields can have their own type, and these types can have their own fields. Likewise, there is a hierarchical manner of defining your GraphQL API. So unlike REST, where you don't have a specific or strongly type system, in GraphQL we have a strongly type system. That means your operations are type safe, and you know beforehand which structure of the data you are retrieving from the server. So in Ballerina also, Ballerina is also a strongly typed language. So Ballerina and GraphQL are pretty much matching in that particular area. So as I said, GraphQL is such a new protocol to write APIs that solves some of the inherent problems in REST APIs. So now we can see, check how we can design a GraphQL API using Ballerina, and how to expose our database using a GraphQL API. Let's go into that. Okay, so I don't need this main function now. I still need my database client, and I'm going to write a service. As I said earlier, services are first-class citizens in Ballerina, so it's quite straightforward. I'm going to write a service, and this service should listen on a particular port. So I'm going to say on new GraphQL listener. Is there a question?
No, I think there's no question.
Okay. So first
I mean,
have
there's
to
no
import.
hand. There's no hand up, so I guess there's no question.
Okay. So I have to import Ballerina GraphQL package here, and I'm going to write a service. So this is the syntax: service on new GraphQL listener, and this is the port number where we are going to listen to. And now when you write this first, you get this option to visualize this service. And I'm going to show you how to use this visual GraphQL designer to write your GraphQL services. Let me close this first. Okay, this is our service. Now it doesn't have anything, so it's just the root. And I'm going to click these buttons and say add query. So as per our GraphQL schema, this is the schema we are going to implement. We have two query fields, movies and directors. So I'm going to add them, movies, and the return type of this field should be movies array. This is how you define arrays in GraphQL. So this should be movie array. So when I type this, it says unknown type movie. Do you want to create a new construct? So yes, we don't have that movie type in GraphQL yet. So I'm going to say create service class here. So it will create a new service class named movie. And now I can save this here to add that movies field. Similarly, I can add another field called directors. The type of it should be director array. Similarly, I'm going to create that directors class. So now I have this relationship. And here I can add fields to our movie type. Let's say title, it should be a string. Save it. Now I have a title, and I can add another field called year. It should be an int. Similarly, I'm going to add the fields to our directors as well. Director has a name and also a birth year. It should be an int. So now I have this relationship created, and we can move into code as well. And now I'll show you how to implement the others inside our code as well. So each field in our GraphQL service, GraphQL type should be a resource function. So I can say that here I have a resource function to get movies, and I have a resource function to get directors, and each type we created also have resource functions to get each of their fields. Now we have to add another field here, which is ID. Before that, let's think about how to create this movie service class. So to create this, we need that information from our database. So to handle this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a private field here, and it should be a read-only field, because once you create this, it shouldn't be changed, because we don't want to change the values after we create a single movie value. So it should be read-only value. And when I create this, I want to pass this movie value and initialize my movie type. This should be self. So since it should be a read-only value, I'm going to clone it to read-only value and then assign to self movie. So now I have all the information for a movie, and here I can just return that self movie dot title. Similarly, I can return the year as this. We also have an ID, so I'm going to add that as a resource function. Okay, it suggests me. Here we have to do something special, because this ID is a ID type in GraphQL. So I'm going to add an annotation here called GraphQL ID, which tells the GraphQL engine that this field, this ID field, is of type ID, and it will be represented as a string, but it should be a ID field. Similarly, I can define our director class as well. So Copilot will be generating them. Okay, now I have my basic types, but I still have to implement that relationship. So here, how to get movies? We tried this before. Stream data source movie. DB client movies. And I get this movie stream here, and then I'm going to use a Ballerina query expression to return an array of movies here. To do that, I am going to say return from data source movie m in movie stream select new m, which means select new m's means that it will select each movie from this stream and it will pass this m into this new init function and create a new movie type, movie service class type. I still get an error here because this can be written an error. So I'm going to add that to my function definition. So now my movie type will be returning a movie. Similarly, we can add the director type as well. Here also I need to add error type in the return. So now I have these values set, but still I didn't implement the director part of the movie. And to handle that, I'm going to write a new resource function, get director, returns director. And to get the director, now in this type, this data source movie type, I get only these fields and the director ID. So to get the director from here, I need to write another DB call. So I'm going to get my DB client and get director, but here I need to pass the director ID and get that particular director. So in the path, I'm going to say self movie.director ID. I can assign this to a data source colon director value. Okay, I have to use error here as well. And now I get a director value, and then I can return new director value by passing this one. So likewise, now I can get the director from a movie, and I also have to have a way to get the movies from a director. I'm going to write this resource function to get movies, but this is quite different from what we wrote earlier, because in this case, as Jose asked previously, we only have relationship from movie to director, but not from director to movie. So in this case, we are going to facilitate the functionality of Bal Persist, and I am going to request a record here, and this stream type movie. So it shouldn't be a stream, it should be a record type, and this record will include an array of movies. This is the result. Okay, so we don't need that. So here what I'm saying is I need this movie array from a particular director, and I only need this movie array. It shows me an error. Let's say directory with relations. Okay, okay. This should be a closed record. That's why I guess. Okay. So now I have a record type where I only get the movie array from this particular director, and I don't need anything else from that director. And after getting this movie array, I'm going to return it similarly. What we did, I'm going to get these movies and select each movie record and create a new movie instance. So now I have completed my GraphQL service, and we need a way to test this. So in Ballerina GraphQL, we have an inbuilt way to test your GraphQL service. We called it GraphiQL Client, and you can enable it like this. In your GraphQL service, you can add this service config. Inside that, you can provide that graphical it should be enabled. And now if I run this, it says that graphical client is ready at this location, and I'm going to open that. And here now I have a GraphQL graphical interface where we can check all our GraphQL interface, like we have our query type. Each query has movies and directors. So I'm going to get the directors first, and first I'm going to retrieve only the names of the directors. And if I send this query, I get only these data I requested. That's the beauty of GraphQL, where you don't need to retrieve everything, or you need to you can just tell the server that I only need director's name, and it will return the directors array with only the names. And let's say we want to retrieve movies as well from each director, and from each movie I only need the title. And if I send this, I get another response with each director and their movies with only the title inside the movie. So this way we can handle various different requirements from clients, and clients can request only what they need from the server, and server will be responding with exactly what they asked for. So you don't have to worry about underfetching or overfetching problems in GraphQL like you encounter in REST APIs. So Ashandi, are we late, or I just have another one simple feature to show if it's okay? Otherwise, we can just switch.
Yeah, no, we still have time.
Okay.
It's
sure.
a 2-hour.
Okay. Okay. So there's one problem here, because if you
we have a question. We have a question. Gervasius, you can go ahead.
Yes. Hi guys. My question is around the GraphQL. So in REST, you have what they call, you can generate the open API spec for your client.
Yes.
How does GraphQL solve such scenarios for their clients?
Yes. Let me show you how. So in GraphQL, GraphQL also defines their API as a schema. And in Ballerina, you can use this Bal GraphQL tool and provide your service function, Ballerina file where your GraphQL service is on. So in our case, this is main.bal file. And if I hit enter, it will analyze the GraphQL service and generate a GraphQL schema file. So this is the one that generated the schema underscore main.graphql file. So this is how you define your GraphQL schema. This is the GraphQL SDL language, where you can say, okay, you can query movies field or directors field. Movies will be returning an array of movies, and directors will be written an array of directors. And from here we can go to movie type and see the movie as a director field. Likewise, you can define the schema.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
The annotation that you put in the code, I just want to make sure that it's not just for VS Code. That if I'm writing the code in Vim, for example, the annotations will still work for me.
Yeah, it will work.
Okay.
It will work anywhere you run your GraphQL service. You can access it using this one. Okay, so there's one issue here. I just wanted to show some security issue here. Let's see now in this relationship, in our GraphQL relationship, we have movies where we can get the director, and from director we can go to movies, and from movies we can go to director. So here we can do that in our query. Name and movies, title, director, name, movies. Okay, let's stop from there. So I can do this infinitely, and some attackers may use this to break your service. If I execute this, it still returns the response, but let's say this goes into thousands of internal fields, then it will definitely be a burden to your service. So to handle this in Ballerina, we can say there should be a maximum depth of a query to handle, otherwise we should return an error. So in this case, if we consider the depth, let's see, we have directors, and from director we get movies, and after that, after 1, 2, and 3, we don't need anything more than this, because director, movies, and then again after director we go into the same loop, right? So we can say that okay, after 4, maybe 3 depth of 3 or 4, we can just throw an error. To do that, we can say here max query depth, and it should be 4. And if I stop my service now and run it again, let's wait for it to run. Okay, now it's ready. And if I send the same query again, now it says query has depth of 6, which exceeds the max query depth. So if I remove these fields and send my request, it will return the expected value. So this can be used in the movies as well. So we can ask the movie title and director. And let's say I want birth year this time. I get this response where I get the title of each movie and the birth year of the director. So this is how you write and design GraphQL APIs using Ballerina, and I hope you see the easiness. And if you compare with some other languages, it will not be this much easier to write GraphQL services and expose your databases using GraphQL. So I think that's it from my side. I hope you know about the Ballerina community. You can connect with our Discord channel, or you can ask questions on Stack Overflow, and you can follow us on Twitter, and also you can contribute to us on GitHub. Ballerina is an open source project, so any contribution will be very much appreciated. And I hope you will contribute to Ballerina in any way you can. Just putting a star on GitHub would be also a great help. So thank you. And if you have any questions, I can answer them.
Yes, I would like to know the code that you shared. I mean, all the code that you shared, will it be accessible through a GitHub repository?
Yes, I'll commit this into a GitHub repository and share with you, so you
Okay,
can.
cool. Just to check a few things. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll share it.
Thank you very much, Thisaru. I'm still not able to pronounce your name though.
You are doing very good.
But thank you very much for any informative talks. We are looking forward to more talk from you guys.
Yes.
I don't know, is somebody from the audience who want to say something before we close off?
Yeah, I can go ahead. I think the Ballerina Persist part that you demonstrated in the first place. I think a few years ago it wasn't connected to a database. It was just on its own, right?
Yes.
So is it still possible to write that portion without persisting it?
Sorry?
Is it still possible? Because I remember in some problems, you want to build the data model, but you don't want to persist it in a data store.
Yes, yes.
Is it still possible to?
Yes, you can use an in-memory table as well for your program.
All right,
so,
all right.
Yeah, if you remember, when you provide that Bal Persist command here, we provide this data store parameter here, right? If you just remove that part, it will create an in-memory data source, so you don't have to connect with the MySQL database or anything.
You have stopped sharing.
Okay, but I got what you were saying.
Oh, sorry, I stopped sharing. I'm really sorry about that. I think Jose got it right.
Yeah. Any other question? And then the GraphQL tool. So you have your separate GraphQL executor.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
The final interface that you used to demonstrate the GraphQL queries.
Yes.
It's not part of Ballerina, right?
No, it's not part of Ballerina. It's a separate open source project. We just integrated it into Ballerina GraphQL package for testing purposes.
Okay. Because I remember a few years ago, it was a hassle to get that tool, particularly on Mac. I don't know for Windows, but particularly on Mac. So I used to do it in the terminal itself.
I see. Yes, because GraphQL is kind of a new thing, so there weren't much of a tools back then. But now there are many tools. You can even use Postman nowadays.
Okay.
Postman also supports GraphQL.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much.
Okay, then thank you very much for inviting us for this session, and hope to do more sessions with you guys.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, Takuda, you have a question or you have a contribution?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Nashandi. I just have a question. I think I joined late, but I did not hear the talk about gRPC services. I only heard what GraphQL REST API, because I'm really interested in the gRPC services via Ballerina.
Yes, Ballerina also supports gRPC. So in Ballerina, we support various protocols like REST, GraphQL, gRPC, WebSockets, WebSub. So there are many libraries that supports various protocols. You can visit the Ballerina website and check the Ballerina library there. And in Ballerina library, you have these various protocols.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Bye, Brian.